This is day 5 of the second week of our 21-day program. We've been focusing on the exploring stage of a mindfulness dialogue way of living. And today we're going to have as our theme the art of the question. But again, in keeping with the mindfulness dialogue process of connecting, exploring, and discovering, we'll begin with a short connecting mindfulness meditation. So, as before, you're becoming so familiar with it now. Position yourself comfortably, relaxed, but alert. To help you relax, take 3 deep breaths. In through your nose and out through your mouth. Then breathe normally. If you feel tension in your body anywhere, notice it. Breathe into that place and breathe out the tension. Now try to let go of all the thoughts that are running around in your head by paying attention to your breath as you breathe in and out deliberately. See if you can find a gentle rhythm. In your mind, softly say the theme of today, the art of the question, and repeat it a little like a mantra. Let it settle into your body. Listen to yourself beneath all the things that engage you in the world. Think of them as like waves on the surface of your deep waters. And now continue with your mindfulness meditation by giving yourself permission to be present here in this moment. When you find yourself distracted, as you will, simply return to your breath and the theme of today. Now gently return to this moment, to where you are, and when you're ready, open your eyes. Feel the connection, presence, the awareness. So let's explore the art of the question. A true question contains its own answer, the way an acorn contains the oak tree. It sounds a little bit like Socrates, who claimed that with the right question he could elicit all wisdom. We've all experienced at least one friend or teacher who was present to us in a way that allowed the right question to be asked. In contrast, we've also experienced what normally passes for inquiry, but is really nothing more than thinly disguised opinion or imperative. I remember a wonderful New Yorker cartoon that depicts the Q&A session after a lecture, where the caption reads, "We'd now like to open the floor to shorter speeches disguised as questions." Even more humorously, perhaps, think of the questions of particularly loved ones whose agenda is really some form of control, however benign, like the mother or spouse who asks you when you're dressing to go out, "You really like that shirt?" When what they really mean is, "I don't think you should wear that shirt." So what is a real question, and where does it come from? And just as important, how do we find it? First, a real question is impelled by a desire to understand. It is seeking information or checking it. It is confirming meaning. It is examining inferences. It is challenging conclusions. It is even addressing beliefs and assumptions. And finally, it is creating space for other possibilities when confronted with noble certainties. Of course, you can see that these aspects of inquiry are the rungs on the ladder of inference. And we've noted already that basic application of this tool for the purpose of deepening understanding through self-listening consists of catching yourself on the ladder, noticing when you have been triggered and allowing the pause that this catching creates to make space for something other than the predictable reaction to occur. A response, in fact, rather than a reaction, which is like a reflex action. A guiding principle of deepening exploration is to follow the discomfort that occurs because my often or even mostly unconscious assumptions have been challenged. The reason for the discomfort is that I tend to identify with these assumptions, so my instinctive reaction is self or identity protection. However, if instead of reacting like this, I actually stay with and follow this discomfort, it will lead me to deeper self-awareness and clearer understanding of the assumptions that are in play. This brings us to the how of the question, which I described in terms of finding the right question. The process, which involves a more explicit application of the ladder of inference, is as follows. When I am triggered, I pause, as before, in order to make space for something other than a reaction. Then I notice which rung on the ladder I am on, for this will give focus to my intention to understand. Thus, if I'm on the first rung where I select data, this will direct me to check my data with a question like, is that what you said? If I'm on the second rung where I add meaning, my intention will be framed in words like, is that what you meant? The higher up the ladder, the more explicit and probing the intention and the deeper the question. Thus, the rung where I reinforce beliefs will suggest a question on what is beneath the words or opinion presented. For example, back in Ireland or wherever, I was told that this was how it works. Can you help me to understand why you see it your way? Of course, it takes time and practice before you can get to this second level of noticing precisely which rung you are on. But let me summarize the art of the question as follows. 1. I realize I am triggered. 2. I notice which rung on the ladder I am on. 3. I pause. 4. I follow the discomfort that the trigger causes. 5. I wait for the question it generates. And 6. I ask the question. I might add that I invite a response, perhaps by the tone of the question or the nuance, and so on. The poet Lao Tzu, the author of the I Ching, distills the process. He says this, I think this is so wonderful. Do you have the patience to wait till your mud settles and the water is clear? Can you remain unmoving till the right action arises by itself? Just listen to that again. Do you have the patience to wait till your mud settles and the water is clear? Think of when we're triggered. Nothing is clear. And then can you remain unmoving till the right action arises by itself? It kind of refers to finding the right question. As I mentioned, I mentioned before, the wording and tone of the question is an important part of the art of inquiry, for the intention is to invite further exploration and understanding and not create defensiveness that can easily result from a kind of an aggressive question. Thus, an inquiry might be framed in words like, I realize that your experience may be different from mine, so could you help me understand? It kind of reflects a little bit of the vulnerability that we explored in the first week, and how being vulnerable and being open like this can elicit a better response, a less defensive response. So let's look at how we might apply this tool and practice the art of the question. It can be a fun and certainly a fascinating thing, a fascinating skill. So do a little short mindfulness moment now to allow some of the things we've been exploring to settle in and to suggest directions or ways for applying this today. So take 3 deep breaths as before. Then breathe normally. Recall the things you've heard about the art of the question. Think for a moment what they mean for your life, where they apply. And make a personal commitment to bring them into your interactions. Focus on one aspect. Perhaps simply work with, that is, hold and then follow the discomfort you feel when you're triggered and see where it leads, where it takes you. You will be surprised. 2 might be when you're listening in on a conversation, an interview on TV, for example. Notice where a question would have served, it wasn't asked. See if you can find that question. In a similar context, notice how a question is presented and the impact this has on the interaction. Perhaps then ask yourself, how would you have presented it? In your journal, you might note any real questions you heard or perhaps used today. The final thought is this. A question presumes or should presume some measure of not knowing. Without this, there is no room for anything new. And so what tends to happen is simply two perspectives bouncing off each other. Honest inquiry, therefore, requires humility and real listening and what I call skilled vulnerability. However, with even a modicum of the skill we've described, inquiry can generate and release true insight and wisdom. It can thereby enhance relationships and help build the communities we need for a new world for us and for our children. So take the art of the question with you today and see where it takes you. Bannacht ar an lá seo.